Welcome to a very special edition of That Millwall podcast. Today we've got 3 all-time Millwall greats. To be more specific, 3 fantastic Millwall goalkeepers. First off, we've got Bryan King, who made 340 league and cup appearances for Millwall between 1967 and 1975, missing just 1 league game in 5 years. Signed by Benny Fenton from non-league Chelmsford City as cover for Laurie Leslie, is alongside Alex Stepney seen as the best goalkeepers Millwall have had since the Second World War. The second ever player to win the Player of the Year award in 1972, when the club narrowly missed out on promotion to the First Division. An England under-23 international, he was called up for the senior squad for a game against Portugal in 1974 and left the club following relegation from Division 2 in 1975. Now based in Norway, where he has scouted and managed several clubs. Our second guest is Bryan Horne. Coming from a Millwall supporting family, Bryan came through the youth ranks in the mid to late 80s, going on to make 196 league and cup appearances for the club. An excellent shot stopper, Bryan won youth honours for England at under-19, under-20 and under-21 levels. He was also voted Player of the Year in the year of 1987, a year before making a vital contribution in the rise to the First Division for the only time in the club's history. He didn't play for the final 2 seasons under Bruce Rioch after falling out of favour with their manager. He now runs a corporate hospitality company and is a UEFA match agent. Our final guest is David Forde, a player who made 339 league and cup appearances for the club. After arriving on a free transfer from Cardiff City, via a successful loan spell at Bournemouth, which saw him save a penalty from Millwall legend Neil Harris. That obviously did enough to convince Kenny Jackett and Tony Burns at the time, with David arriving and going on to make 157 league appearances in a row over the course of 3 seasons. He established himself as Ireland's number 1, becoming the oldest player to play in a competitive game for the side when he took to the field against Sweden in March 2013. Forde was also voted Millwall's Player of the Year by the fans in 2014. And ever present in the 2010 league playoff winning team, he also played in the 2013 FA Cup semi-final. He now runs a personal coaching and development company. Buckle in for 2 parts of a great show.
You've obviously, but one of our big, we'll just come back on to 1 or 2 other things. One of our big, our biggest rivals, West Ham United. And Forde, you played there in 2009, the night when Chopper scored for us and they started losing their minds. What was that like?
That was, honest to God, that was an insane, it was like an outer body experience. It was like I was there, but I wasn't there. And you're just there as the game is going on. It was like there was 2 games going on at once. There was the game going on in the pitch, and then there was the game of the fans and the crowd and the police and everything else. And you could just feel it in the air that night. You could feel there was something right. It was a special night because the clubs hadn't, I think, played for such a long time since, I think it was the 4-1. Was it the 4-0? The 4-0 at the Den before that?
Yeah. Mother's Day.
The Mother's Day, the Mother's Day massacre, yeah. So there was huge tensions being built, and apparently they were saying then that the police force, the Met Police, didn't put enough police on the day. All the pubs and bars and were all boarded up before the game. We just arrived at the ground. You just thought, right, there's something not right here. But for some reason, we were League One at the time, doing quite well. But our level just went like that. And next thing, we were probably the best team for maybe 60, 70, 80 minutes of that game, where Chopper scored. Alan Dunn could have scored one of the best goals he's ever scored in his life. He ran from right back, went through about 5 or 6 players. And I thought, oh my God, he's going to score an absolute worldie here. Next thing, he P-rolls it into Robert Green's hands, and he just bends over and picks it up. And after all that hard work, so it could have been a fantastic night. They scored late on, and then they just had the legs on us over extra time, and they scored a couple of late goals and stuff. But it was the pitch invasions. There was a couple of times we got called off the pitch. We were back on the pitch. There was I remember one stage one of the chairs, like a boomerang, just came out around my head and went back out around the pitch, and it was just crazy. It was a crazy game, but it was great to be a part of and great to actually be a witness and observe all that.
We was always unlucky at Neil, we was always unlucky at Upton Park, weren't we, Forde? I mean, a couple of years later, when Junior Forde rugby tackled you into the goal, and then Winston Reid scores, that was heartbreaking that day. I didn't go to the first game, but the second game in particular still rubs me up the wrong way now, because the last time we played them, they score a goal like that. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was an absolute disgrace. I don't know how the referee didn't give that decision, because I came out and punched the box 4 bar, just absolutely mullered. I wasn't right for a week, months after. I had a dead leg. I had such a dead leg after it. And I remember thinking, right, the ball's got punched and it's gone into, I think it's still gone to the edge of the D. And Winston Reid, who hasn't scored since, just ran up and half volleyed it into the top corner. And I just thought, oh my God, my life can't get any worse here at the moment. So, yeah, we were definitely unlucky that day. And yeah, it was pretty unfortunate. And like that, I'm sure Bryan and Kingy has plenty of experiences where you haven't got the rugby green as a goalkeeper, and the sense of injustice in that is it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, because we were 1-0 up, obviously that day, because didn't Liam Trotter pop up with one? I can remember that, going absolutely bananas for about 5 minutes afterwards.
Yeah, they put us up in the skies that game, because I think obviously the first game they learnt from their mistakes and they put us up into the clouds, kind of hidden away. I remember the escort before that, everything. It was one of my fondest memories, really. I remember, like, obviously being the only young kid with my dad, but just great days. That you love those sort of days, really.
Yeah, like, yeah, I know they're bitter rivals and stuff like that, like, you know, but I think both clubs kind of need each other, and they both feed off each other, and they're two fantastic clubs. And it's just great to see when you chase back the history of it, even you think, right, you go back to the days on the Dockers and stuff, and, you know, one came from Scotland and one was English, and how that all started, and the tradition and the years that's come on, and you know, it's amazing. It's amazing. And then to play in those games that I would have heard about when I was younger, like, you know, I was always told about the Glasgow Derby, being a Celtic fan and being an Irish boy, them and Rangers. I was always told about, you know, Liverpool, Everton, and Millwall, West Ham. You know, it was always a big game that people spoke about. It was notorious.
Talking about the West Ham game, because obviously you've all three played West Ham games, Horne. So we'll come back to you in a sec, Horne. But King, you played West Ham in Cribbs's testimonial, didn't you?
Yeah, that was an incredible game, actually, because West Ham had a lot of, well, it was the full first team they sent over, and this was in 71, I think. And Harry, of course, started his career at West Ham, and then he made his move to Millwall. He was a big friend of Bobby Moore's, he was, and it was a great day for Harry. You know, Bobby Moore captained West Ham and Harry captained Millwall that day. But there was a big crowd at the old Den, and I believe the West Ham supporters thought they were going to take over the Coldblow Lane end, and that resulted in quite a sort out before the game even got started. But the atmosphere was always electric down there. You know, I think West Ham supporters were worried about getting a train home, to be honest. But it was a good game. I mean, it was a testimonial game, but there were tackles flying around, and it was just a good atmosphere. It was a really good atmosphere. Great testimonial playing, I tell you.
Who played in goals for West Ham, Kingy?
Bobby Ferguson.
So he's Scottish?
Yeah. He was, I think they brought him down from 65 grand, I think Ron paid for him, Greenwood. But they had Billy Bonds, Patsy Holland, Jeff Hurst, Bobby Moore, Frank Lampard. You know, they had a good side. And we had a good team as well that day. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a good taste of playing against real top-class opposition as well. And you can only admire, you know, it's just after the World Cup in Mexico, and you had Banksy and not Banks, but you had Morrow and Hursty who played in that. And just going back to what you said earlier, David, about Gordon Banksy's save, I think it was the occasion and you know, the whole thing there in Guadalajara, and
yeah.
One of my best mates was playing left back in the day, and that was Terry Cooper. He's a great pal of mine, Terry, and we always tease him a little bit. Thought he had a bit of pace until Jarzinho went down the line and fired that crossing. But I mean, everything was perfect, wasn't it? Banksy was near post, ball came over, great cross. The height Pelly got up to head that ball.
Yeah,
and he done everything right. And then Banksy, like you say to young goalkeepers, if you're doing practice and whatever, and you're on the near post and balls got played towards the far post. So you've got to make that distance and get anything you can in the way of it. It's a hopeless cause, really. But the way Banksy got that ball up and over the bar, I mean, and I think that was the first time he wore those type of gloves. He got them from All Sport, a German. I don't know whether it's Sepp Meyer or...
UHL, Brian, wasn't it? UHL?
Sorry?
UHL, wasn't it, on the gloves?
I've no idea. But they were blue and white, his gloves. And they were given to him again because although the ball was very much like the old ball, it moved around so much because of the high altitude.
Yeah.
And Banksy found it much easier to use those gloves, and I suppose he had Sepp Meyer to thank for that save. Yeah,
no, it was amazing. No, just going to add one thing that's just come to my mind there, and I just wanted to share it with you actually, and I think it's pretty relevant to the evening. And Kingy's book coming out and stuff was like you were saying about the West Ham game, and the likes of Bobby Moore and that team. Was Harry Redknapp there at that time, or was that?
Harry was on the bench. Harry was on the bench in that game.
Yeah, and a good old friend of yours as well, Stuart Morgan, Kingy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was Stuart that actually brought me over from the west of Ireland. His son came to play with Galway United, and Stuart came over to watch a couple of games. He was like, "There's a decent keeper in the west of Ireland. Someone take him over." So I went over to Barrytown. Peter Nicholas was the manager there, and Kenny Brown, who's the director of coaching now at the academy. He was the assistant manager. So I went over to Barrytown, but it was Stuart that took me over. And I remember chatting to Stuart, and I was telling him about about playing at Millwall, and he was talking about obviously yourself being there, and the records you hold and all that kind of thing. And he said he paid you such a big compliment that day. He just said that he said Kingy was unlucky because of the caliber of goalkeepers he had in front of him at English level, and I know he did get the one cap that time, but he did always say that you were unlucky and you deserve more. So as you said, there was Gordon Banks. Was Ray Clements there as well, was he?
Well, Ray joined Liverpool when I joined Millwall.
Did he?
He was from Scunthorpe, and there was Joe Corrigan, Phil Parks, Alan Stevenson, Jimmy Rimmer.
Rimmer, yeah.
There was a list of keepers, and you had Shilton, who was coming up. We played Leicester in the cup in '69, the year they got the cup final, and that was the biggest crowd I played at the Old Den, and that was just under 35,000.
Wow.
And I mean, if you can imagine, I played at the Den with 100 people. I played there with 35,000. The atmosphere, and I'll always say, I don't care if you've got 10,000 Millwall supporters in that stadium and 60,000 in that Emirates. They make more noise at the Old Den than they did in the Emirates now. I tell you, it was wonderful to play there. And Banksy said to me, "How'd you play here every other week?" He said, "Fight me to death." And I mean, it did. And he played everywhere and played in front of 100,000 people all over the world. But he said, 20,000, that mob there, God, Jesus Christ. He said, you've got to play well. You've got to play well, ain't you?
I mean, Horne, you played in Simod Cup, didn't you, against West Ham?
A few league games, mate. We got beat 1-0. Incy scored. We got beat 1-0 at home, and we got beat 3-1 away, I think, in the league as well, if I remember rightly. But yeah, we're in the Simod Cup. We beat them at West Ham. The likes of Liam Brady, the great Liam Brady, was playing for West Ham at the end of his career. And they had the young Paul Ince playing for him as well. I think they had Alvin Martin at the back, if I can remember rightly. Alan McKnight was in goal that day. And I think Alan McKnight made a mistake, and Teddy got a second goal, and we held out and won 2-1. So that was one for the Millwall boys to like. It was a win at Upton Park, and 2-1 was nice. I think that's the last time we've beat them there as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but that game, I think, where they actually closed off the whole of the away end, wasn't it? And they just gave us one corner.
Yeah, it was on the left-hand corner. Yeah, it was the left-hand corner as you come out. Yeah, so it was. I mean, it was mobbed in there. I can always remember it was crazy, always crazy. And you got to remember. Let me tell you stories. Obviously, my family are Millwall supporters. I come from Essex, So obviously everywhere in Essex are Millwall West Ham supporters. So you can imagine me having a West Ham Millwall bag coming back from training on a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night from Southwark Park, sitting on the train with West Ham supporters getting on it. You can imagine, can't you? I'm shitting myself going down on the train from down into Basildon or where I was brought up, you know, with loads of West Hams and me carrying a Millwall bag on the train. But no, it was all good. All my mates are West Ham supporters, and it was good to get one over on them. Let's put it that way.
I mean, it's weird as well. I mean, you know, we talk about West Ham. I think we've played them around 60 games starting in, I think it was 1899. But the reputation and the rivalry and the hatred between the two clubs is probably one of the most feared or well-known rivalries throughout the world.
Well, I can remember there was a stage where they started pushing supporters under trains. I don't know if you can remember that.
78, wasn't it, where they threw the fella at New Cross, didn't they? Threw him under the train.
Threw him under the train. I mean, and then, you know, his retaliation after that, it was just unbelievable. So you can imagine when you do play against West Ham or whatever, it's just a unique experience. You can feel both sets of supporters. I don't know if you experience this, both of you, Bryan and Forde, that both sets of supporters wanted to get at each other during the game. That's what I felt in the old West Ham ground, that both sets of supporters just wanted to get at each other and fight. That's
it wasn't about the game at all. No one wanted to know about the game. The game was irrelevant.
Yeah, it just radiated. That was the feeling I got playing in them games. It wasn't about the football. It was about getting at each other or whatever. It was mad. It was just.
To be fair, my career nearly ended at we played West Ham at the Den in the Championship. I think it was the year they got promoted, and we drew 0-0. And just at the start of the game, I was just leaving me water bottle around the back of the goal. I think it was Frank Noble. Usually you give it the referee, gives it the one keepers, and you give it the old thumbs up. So next thing I'm down the back of the goal, putting my bottle up, and next thing I see him taking the corner, and Mark Noble takes it and hits it, and I'm still behind the goal, and it just sails over the crossbar, and it goes out for a goal kick, and I walk around the goal, and I'm like, "What's happened there?" The ref said, "Play on." And I ran up to the referee. I was going to murder him. I was thinking, you could have just ended my life. You could have ended my career.
I mean,
murder you. I got away with one that day.
Talking about, obviously, there we're going to, but I mean, you talk about people under trains or that sort of rivalry. I mean, in the game you played in, 2009, wasn't it? I think it was when you were there with, there was a Millwall fan that got stabbed at that game.
Yeah, is it Alan? Alan, because he used to come. What's his second name? He used to come into the players' lounge after games. After that, and a few of us went up to see him in hospital that time, and he had like an S wound from his chest all the way down his stomach, and he'd been badly stabbed that night. I remember hearing about it after the game, thinking there was a man badly stabbed, and I think what happened was he was with his son, and he managed to protect his son. And look, as he knew, and he put himself on the line. And just thought, "Whoa, that's some man, you know, to look after his son and his child that way." And he stood out, and he ended up paying the price for it. But luckily, it didn't cost him his life. And that's the sad thing about it, is, you know, it's football means so much to us, but to lose a life, there's no
pointless. It's pointless.
Absolutely. But on that very subject, there are obviously, you know, mad games and all that. What's your most fearful game you've played in, where you actually thought, I could be banging trouble here?
I don't know really. I suppose if you were opposition coming to the old Den, there was always a fear. And I remember in '67 when we played Aston Villa, I wasn't playing, but I was stood where the players come out just before the end of the game, and a referee called Norman Burtonshaw had awarded a penalty to Aston Villa, like 2 minutes from the end. And they scored, which resulted in them winning the game. And the reaction afterwards, when all the punters got on the pitch, And I mean, if they'd have got hold of him proper, I think they'd have killed him. And it was really a fearful moment because he ended up, getting whacked. And 2 guys were arrested and brought off the pitch and into that room in front of the dressing rooms. And I mean, it was really a violent moment. It really was. And I'm thinking, Jim Coombs was playing in goal for Aston Villa, and he'd been hit on the head about 4 times with lumps of coal. And he said to me, I ain't even got an open fire. He said, but I mean lumps of coal. He said, where'd they get them from? Probably the docks, I said to him. But
he was on fire the same game, yeah.
I tell you what, he needed a log. But I suppose some of the northern grounds were a little bit eerie as well. When you played at Man United in the early days, it was used to shower you with pennies and all this carry on. But I was never. I remember going with Coventry to West Ham, and God, blimey, they called me everything, Millwall scum, and you name it, they called me, and I was playing for Coventry. But it was. It was very intimidating at the off-the-line ground, and I'm thinking, in some ways, I was glad I never went with Millwall to play against West Ham, because the only time I played was in Harry's testimonial, and that was bad enough. I mean, that got to a frightening stage at one point.
I mean, what's your most fearful game then, Horne?
78, Ipswich at home. I was with my family. Going to the game, my mum, my dad, and that day, I'll never forget that the Ipswich supporters coach pulled round the corner, and there was a house on one of these corners where we was walking down, and all there was loads of bricks that had obviously come away from the house or wherever it was, and the Millwall supporters were chucking them through the windows of the coach, and there was young kids. I was only 9, but you could see the kids were absolutely scared out of their life. And that sort of scared me. But in a way, it stayed with me all my life from when I played for Millwall, of what it meant and everything else. But the funniest thing was the day we got promoted with a trophy at Millwall. Unbelievably, the referee didn't work it out to put us down the bottom end as you come out in the second half. So the second half, we've kicked off Hilton Road end. And when he's blown the whistle, obviously the fans have gone onto the pitch. And I'll never forget, a supporter just come up and knifed my shirt off my back. Just literally straight up, my shorts were off, everything was off, and just knifed my shirt off my back. And I ended up walking down the tunnel in my boxers, in my little slip that you used to wear in them days. But I think everybody was getting done at the same time. I'll never forget, he just came out, I said, hey, I'll take it off, have it. So I went, no, don't worry, he just went straight out the back of it and took it off my back. So that was them 2 things. But West Ham, the games at West Ham are always for me a rivalry. I want it to be a healthy rivalry, as Forde said. Where the clubs have come from on the docks, and the way both clubs have gone on in the way the clubs have gone. I think everybody likes playing against West Ham, and everybody wants to get one over on them the same as they want to get one over on us. But I think, there's got to be a healthy rivalry. We've got to make it a healthy rivalry. It can still be ferocious. It can still be all the things that we want it to be. But, please don't anymore lose lives. Let's be sensible and get it out there. But I can't wait for the team to play them again. I'll be in the stands. I'll be shouting, and the same as all the Millwall supporters to beat them. But the West Ham game, the 1978 game at home against Ipswich, and the celebrations of the game at home against Blackburn. That was funny. You know what happened there? We had to beat them at home. We had already won. We'd won the league. We'd done everything. So if we beat them, it meant that Crystal Palace got into the playoffs. So all that week, we made sure that we drank as much as we could, because we was allowed to drink whatever we want. After we won at Hull, we had won. So Frank and another funny story, I've got to tell you this. So we just beat Hull 1-0, right? The chairman has gone. We're champions. We're up. We're in the hotel. He said, we're going back. And he said, we'll go home Sunday. Champagne on us all night. So we get back to the hotel. And so there was Dean Orix, God rest his soul, he's passed away now. Teddy, Woody, myself, my another, we said, fuck this, we're going out. We're going to go and find a nightclub, try and pull a couple of birds. We're off. We're going out. So anyway, we went out and we ended up, Forde and Kingy, in a nightclub in Hull, where Hull was having their presentation due that night. And you can imagine we're in the corner trying to get hold of birds. They're having their presentation due. And in them days, the club shut at 2 o'clock in the morning. So Woody's pulled a nurse and we're whatever. So we've got to sneak back into the hotel now. So anyway, we get back into the hotel. It's got to be 3:30 in the morning. Everybody is still up drinking. We thought we're going to get back there all in bed. Everybody's still bang on it, everything else. But the manager, John Dockett, is at the front door. He knows we've gone out. He's clocked us. So as we've come in, he's gone, you, and you, make sure you're at Welling for a 2 o'clock kickoff. You're playing against Charlton in the reserves. Sunday this was. So we've just won the league, right? We're all bollocks. Roger Cross has got to now drive the minibus back down the motorway. So we said, well, we might as well fucking start drinking. So we did.
Roger Cross, that was at West Ham, was the...
That's right.
Yeah, Roger.
Yeah, yeah.
Team manager at the time.
Yeah.
So he drove us all back down. We're being sick out the window on the way down past the Humber Bridge and everything else. We pull up at Welling about 1:30. Everybody's saying, what you lot doing here? And we lost 7-1 that day. We couldn't, and it just carried on that week. So it got to the game against Blackburn. We got beat 4-2 at home, and Crystal Palace didn't get in the playoffs. So it worked out lovely.
By the way, Ollie, there's somebody behind you with a frying pan.
So what? Oh, Kingy said there's someone behind you with a frying pan.
Yeah, I heard that, mate. Yeah.
Forde, so what was your most feared?
I'm trying to think, like, because even that game at West Ham that night in 2009, I never felt afraid that night. I never felt fearful, and even the games up at Leeds and stuff. I think one game that probably comes to my mind, and I think the most fearful I've ever been at a game, I was probably 15 years of age, and I was playing for a club called Belvedere in Dublin, and I used to commute up from Galway every weekend. And funny enough, they just Millwall had just signed Mark Kennedy. Mark Kennedy back then, Sparky. So Sparky had just gone from Belvedere, and they were a feeder club to Millwall at the time. So I just come up and I thought, right, if I go to Dublin here, I've got a chance of getting myself. And I think one of the lads I played with in that team, Jerry Whelan, he ended up going across to the U team as well. But he didn't make it in the end. But we went to watch on a Friday night. I was up in Dublin, and I went to watch Bohemians and Shamrock Rovers, which are two big Dublin rivals. And I remember being at Dalymount Park, and I remember just like what Horne said, the game was going on, but then there was a game outside down the back alleyway, and I was looking over the terraces out the back, and I seen a red and a green flare coming, and by God, did they kick 7 shades of shite out of each other that night. And I've never been more terrified at a game in all my life. But as a senior pro, I'm trying to think, was there a time I ever felt that sense of, oh my God? I can't think of one at the moment. That's the kind of nearest one I can remember of. But yeah.
So you honestly weren't that worried when West Ham were losing it and running past you and...
Well, I think it was me. I don't know. It was my own innocence or my own stupidity, one or the other. And because I suppose I had been at West Ham and I'd understood the clubs and stuff, and people were just going mental around me. And I've even watched people of my mates and family have watched clips and said of that you can get them on YouTube, or like Kingy was saying earlier. And there I am, just in the middle of them, just walking off the pitch, like, you know, everyone's just freaking out. And I remember just going over to some of the lads. And some of the lads were petrified to even walk back out into the pitch. And I was just thinking, right, this is where I grew up and where I come from and where my family came back from. You know, it was always that sense of, there was always that intensity, you know, where I grew up in and stuff, like, you know. So an old toe-to-toe in a fight wasn't shied away from. So that was always in my nature, and it was always in my blood. So I always felt pretty comfortable in those kind of volatile situations.
read the story with Horde there, when he said obviously that he went out after the whole game. Were you part of the boys what went out when you were in Ireland, when you come back from the Guinness factory and then you sneak back out?
Yeah, they told you that one, did they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So we went over to Dublin for pre-season, and I was absolutely, I can't remember, was this the first year we went or the second year we went? And you know, I was delighted, obviously, going back to Ireland and stuff like that. Like, you know, flying into Dublin, lads were buzzing, and we used to have the Secret Seven. I don't know, the lads tell you about the Secret Seven. So the Secret Seven was myself, Neil Harris, Paul Robinson, Alan Dunn, Gary Alexander, Andy Frampton, and Tony Craig. I think that's probably 8. But anyhow, it was the Secret 7. So we used to go. We used to just like that arrange an odd evening. We'd go for a little pint of Guinness, pint of the black stuff. And I remember one day we've come down the back of the hotel, and we've gone down the back way. And we're coming out this back alleyway or whatever. And next thing I'm walking, we're all chirpy, going for a couple of pints that evening. Breaking the curfews and just having that bit of team bonding and that bit of rebellious nature in the boys. And next thing, I turn to my left and I look in the window and I see Tony Burns and Richard Shaw looking straight back out at me. And I'm there with my best gear on, shirt on, the whole lot polished. And they look at me and they just freeze. Next thing I look down and I see Kenny and Joe Gallen facing the opposite way. So the lads are all coming down making thing, and I'm diving. Actually, I'm rolling on the floor, and they all think I'm just piss-potting around, like being a goalkeeper rolling around the floor for a night out. And I'm like, the gaffer's inside the door. The gaffer's inside the door. But he hears a commotion, and he gets up, and next thing, we're all in against the wall, like crawling down by the wall by these barrels of Guinness. And we managed to get out. Like, it was like the escape to victory, escape to freedom. And they were great nights for team bonding. But the next day, we ended up getting to the Guinness factory. And it was so funny. We got into the Guinness factory. I don't know if any of you have been there. Have you ever been there, Horne or Kingy?
No.
And that's brilliant. And geez, back then I used to drink Guinness to pay the band, like, you know. And we're up at the top of this bar, and they've got 3 different Guinness pumps. And you know, you pull the pint of Guinness 3/4, and you let it settle, and then you top it. That's the standard traditional way of pulling a pint of Guinness. So we had all these free tickets. Joe Gallen had arranged all these free tickets. So we got all these free tickets. And we drank the bar dry that night. And in the end, they were like, no more drink for you. No more, you have to go over there. So they started pulling around at the other 2 taps. So what they did was they started pulling at the other 2 taps, and they had the 3/4. And we'd go around and grab the 3/4. We wouldn't even wait for them to fill up. They had a good 10 or 12 points.
Yep.
Got back on the bus. So we ended up getting back on the bus, and the gaffer was like, right, be back in the hotel by 7 o'clock. Like, so we all jumped back on the bus, back by 7 o'clock. And the gaffer went straight through the doors, up the stairs, and there was a circular round door. We just went in the circular round door, came back out, and we had the taxi man waiting for us again. Like, yeah, so
Jimmy Abdi was your saviour, wasn't he?
Oh, Jimmy's the saviour, yeah. He started singing La Marseillaise as his introductory song in the Oliver St. Gregory in the middle of Temple Street. And then Kenny comes out, and Donny had this orange T-shirt on, the collar's up, this polo shirt. And there he was down the middle of the cobble street in Temple Bar doing a handstand. Coins and everything, and Kenny just walks out of the bar. He's like, Donny, what are you doing?
Also, would it Jimmy, what kept the fire exit open for you boys when you returned?
Yeah, it was like, Jimmy, I can't remember who had it open. I just remember walking through it.
Kingy, did you have any mad going out stories with the team you were in back then?
Yeah, Friday we did actually. We went to Bournemouth one year, play a couple of matches down there, Poole Town and Bournemouth, and all the lads said that we were going to go out for a drink and whatever. And on the way back, we'd been out, we'd had a right good skinful, and on the way back, Bryan, as we're walking back, jumps up, and there's one of them Belisha beacons. You know the Belisha beacon when you cross the road? Yeah. He's hit it, so it's come off the thing, you know, off the light, you know. And of course, we're all in the process of running, think it's going to smash on the floor. And it was made of rubber. So Brownie, in his wisdom, has decided to kick it half volley. And just as he kicked it, hit this copper coming round the corner. We're in all directions. I mean, we're all the Bournemouth Winter Gardens. Me and Kitch jumped over this fence, and Kitch caught the arse of his trousers on this fence. And honest to God, it was like it was as though there'd been a bomb go off. You know when you see a bloke and all your trousers are in bits, and Kitch has gone, how am I going to get back in the hotel looking like this? And because we had 11 o'clock curfew. And dear old Laurie was the fella. So what we'd done was we went round the back and they had a big lawn. And there's about 8 of us, Frankie Saul and Kitch and Brownie and Poss and all this. And we're all coming across the grass as though we're commandos. You know when you're on your arms and on your knees and you're coming across. And we must have gone about 25 yards on this grass and all trying to keep quiet. And we got within about 2 yards of the back door of the hotel and the bloody floodlights come on. And Laurie stood there like, we're all lying there. And quick as a flash, Kitch, he said, what are you doing? Kitch says, I'll drop me change on the way out. We're all looking for it. And Laurie said, in. So we got fined about £8 or something, or tenner, which was an awful lot of money in them days, I can tell you.
Talking about fines there, I mean, I take it all of you, but I mean, what's the most fine you've had and what for?
Well, I got fined. I got a yellow card for bouncing the ball off of Eric Potts, his head, who played for Sheffield Wednesday. I'd give a penalty away, and he's trying to fight to get the ball, and he's about 5 foot, he is, and he keeps on and on and on. So I just said, well, you can have the ball here, and I'll bounce it off his head. And I got a thing from the FA that King, who was holding on to the ball, trying to stop the penalty kick being taken, was confronted by Potts, who made an effort to get the ball back. But King aggravated the situation by bouncing the ball off of Potts' head. I got fined a £5 from the FA, ungentlemanly contact. Never got fined at the club. We never had it at the club. We never had fines when I was playing at the Old Den or the 8 years I was there. We never had fines.
What about you then, Horne? I can't see you not getting a fine.
Oh, we've had a few.
I got fined £5,000 in 1 year. Yeah, and back then it was a lot of money.
Great.
Yeah, he used to fine me, Bruce Rioch, like 2 weeks' wages for being a pound overweight. Like coming in Monday morning, he obviously wanted to get rid of me for sure. But he used to fine me, and I used to go, you can fine me all you fucking like, but I ain't going nowhere. So eventually the PFA got involved, but that year I think I got done about £5,000.
Yeah, because the last 2 seasons, he really took a disliking to you, didn't you? You didn't play for the last 2 seasons, did you?
And I did. It was, I played, you'd be quite surprised, I played about 32, 33 games in the first season, and then the second season, probably about 30, something like that under him, but sort of, he straight away, he just took it. I've been promised the biggest contract of my life at the club. And obviously we just got relegated and he come in and the first thing he did when he come in, he said, you ain't getting your fucking contract. And he didn't know me from Adam. So I just went straight to the chairman and said, look, it's either this or I'm off. So he took an instant dislike for me for some reason, don't know why. I mean, the type of person he was, Bruce, we had a fantastic coach, Steve Harrison. I don't know if you've come across him in the game, but mate, he's such a top fella. I can't believe it is. Liam McNeil and fucking, and Bruce Rioch, 2 Scotch eggs, right? They're unbelievable, right? And then you had Steve Harrison. Well, Steve Harrison just used to say to me, only getting half hour early, we're going to go for a jog around the park, so on and so forth. So he looked after me. He was brilliant. He used to get me in. We used to do that. If my weight was all right, and we used to do some handling and different bits and pieces. But he was brilliant. But, Bruce was just tried to fear by intimidation. And I couldn't have it. He would come down and be right in my face with a cup of tea in my hand and throw the cup of tea away. And I used to go, right, is that supposed to scare me now? He was just, not every player is going to say that about him. That's my experience with him. But we just didn't get on. We just didn't see eye to eye. In fact, I'm not even going to say that I didn't like the way he played football. The way he wanted to play the game, I quite enjoyed. I think he was, the way he wanted to play football was great. But just as an individual man management, half time, he was fighting with Malcolm Allen in the dressing room for 15 minutes. I mean, when I say fighting, they're hitting each other. For 15 minutes, the bell goes, we go out for the second half. I mean, absolutely just off his head. So that was my experience. Them 2 years, I wasn't going to be beaten. I wasn't going to be beaten by him. But the thing was, that was happening when Mick McCarthy came into the club. So all Mick saw was me fighting with a manager. And that was basically, that's all Mick saw. So my writing was on the wall. I never wanted to go anywhere. I think I still had 2 years left of my contract when I left the club. But, there was 7 goalkeepers there. There was myself, Bonnie Ginsberg, Peter Rucker, Keith Brannigan, Aidan Davison, Cole Emberson, and someone else. I mean, what are we all doing at the club is ridiculous. So in the end, that was me. I went to Pompey.
Well, 7 keepers there at one time.
Pardon? 7 at one time, yeah.
One time. No way.
It was a secret 7.
I mean, go to you, Forde. I mean, what was your biggest finding, and what did you do?
I think by the time I got to the club at 28, 29, I'd managed to get a bit of cop on and a bit of sense into me, So that probably, I can't actually recall any major fines. Kenny wasn't big on fining players. He didn't believe on taking money out of players' pockets, but yet he had installed a level of what was right and what was wrong. But I think the beauty of, like what we said, that secret 7, we just managed the group and the team between us. And anyone that stepped out of place, we all backed each other, and we stepped in, and we kind of guarded the team and protected the team that way. But I think the most I was ever fined was when I was at West Ham. I missed training one Monday morning. I went back to Ireland for the weekend and forgot to wake up and get me red-eye flight back, so I got fined 2 weeks' wages. So I think I learnt my lesson after that. It was a great weekend, though. It was well worth it.
Let me just tell you one story how it differs from managers.
He's gone again.
Yeah, but that's the frying pan going flying across the room again, isn't it?
No.
He's gonna be back in a minute, and you can tell this.
That's BT. That's a
from Woody, isn't it?
Is he? I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's in the UK or if he's in Portugal.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, I don't know what he's.
I want to ask what kind of contract he was on. $5,000. Come on, I'm going to have to question that.
I mean, while we're waiting for him to come back, and he'll probably come back. Who's your best manager you played for then, Forde?
At Millwall.
Yeah, at Millwall or throughout your career.
Well, at Millwall, there was only I had Kenny, I had Ollie, I had Chopper, and Steve Lomas. So I was lucky enough in those 9 years only to have 4 managers, which was a blessing.
But you had 2 clowns, though.
How's that?
You had one definite clown and one what was the writing was on the wall as soon as he walked into the ground with a banner on the gate. Yeah,
it was interesting because for a couple of reasons, and each one taught me so much. Neil, Kenny Jackett was amazing for me because like that he seen something in me and thought, right, he's 28, he's coming to a good age, he's probably got the mentality and the ability to play at Millwall. And I had an amazing spell, learned so much under Kenny Jackett for his style of play and how he understood the club and how the club wants their team set up and how the game was played. He was amazing. I learned so much under Ian Holloway. For many reasons. Was his ability to change systems, his ability to play different types of football, and he gave me a lot of freedom as a goalkeeper to express myself in terms of the way he wanted balls delivered to fullbacks. Where normally under Kenny, it was finding the forward man and finding wingers and stuff like that. So he definitely helped me to evolve as a player at that time. Steve Lomas probably wasn't really there to make that much of an impact. I remember speaking to Steve because I know Steve, and he was talking to me about, you know, bringing players in, and he was talking about various different signings. And I remember out in my back garden just here, and I remember saying to him at the time, I said, to be honest, Steve, I understand what you're trying to do, but I said, Millwall's Millwall. I've been here a long time, and the players you've mentioned to me are not Millwall players and not Millwall caliber players, and it will cost you. And he said, look, he said, fair enough, I appreciate your honesty. And that's what ultimately did happen and stuff. And he was on a bit of a tough one from the start, being ex-Millwall captain, but
or ex-captain,
yeah. And yeah, exactly, yeah. Cheers, that got on well. And yeah, so look, it was amazing. And then Neil had come in, and it was difficult for Neil as well, because we were very close as well when we had a great working relationship when we played, and he had some tough decisions to make as well. And like that, I totally understood where he was coming from, and where I was in my career at that time as well. And he had some tough choices to make, and he made those choices, and you got to hand it to him. He made those tough, difficult decisions, because like that, he had to survive. He had to look after his family as well, and ones that I didn't agree with, but he certainly made them. And you know, at the time, you think, what better way to make a statement is you probably go for your top player at the time, and you go for that senior position, and you make a statement, and you got to hand it to him. The thing I liked about Neil was you could always see he had a huge ability to be a top manager, because he didn't have a problem making tough decisions. It probably ate him up inside, but he still had a great ability to make difficult decisions. And yeah, I do think Neil's going to go on and have a fantastic career as a manager.
He does keep. He likes to try and deflect all the blame away from his players, doesn't he? And he does take a lot of the criticism to heart.
Yeah. Like one of the biggest things I thought Neil was going to be a good manager was very simple. He came in after a game one day, and the majority of managers would blame the team. Oh, you didn't run enough, you're not fit enough, all the usual bull that goes with it. And next thing, you come in on a Monday morning, and now with the sports science of today, you look at the sports science. One, we haven't ran as much all season. Two, the heart rates. Two, the intensity runs. They were all higher, even though we got beat. So that's not really an excuse to say that, well, you haven't run enough or you haven't thing. And the amount of managers that use that. And players know. We've all been in teams, and we've all watched teams where you're like, right, the tactics are wrong, or you pick the wrong formation, or you're the wrong team. But not many managers will have that vulnerability and show that courage and say, well, I got that one actually wrong. Where I remember Neil came in one night, and we got, I think, beat 4-0 on a Tuesday night or something at the Den, and I was sitting on the bench. And he came in afterwards, and he just held his hand up, and he said, lads, you know what? That was me. I got that one wrong. And as players, we've all been in that situation. When a manager does that, you actually go, do you know what? I've respect for that. I have absolute massive respect for that. You just held your hand up, and that was it. Chat to you tomorrow, chat to you Tuesday, and you go out and you get on with it, where you're not going around thinking, what a prick, why didn't he just call it as it is? So yeah, that was there was a lot of learning in those years.
So to you then, Kingy, who was your best manager?
Well, I have to go with the man who brought me to Millwall, Benny Fenton. He was there for 10 years, and he was there before I came, and he brought me in at the same time as the Poss and Keith Weller, Dennis Burnett. He introduced Kitch, he introduced Dougie Alder. He could certainly see a player, and I'd say it's because he brought me in, but a set of shirts and you end up with Gordon Hill. I mean, he could spot a player. There's no two ways about it. And at the time, with the Poss and Keith, who were fringe players at Tottenham, for 40 grand, he brought them into the football club. I was $5 grand. Dennis Burnett was 15. Played in the European Cup, Winners' Cup for West Ham. Still young enough to start a second career in actual fact, and he was a good manager. I mean, we're terribly unlucky that year we never went up, but I was even lucky with when I was playing at Chelmsford, because I had a fellow called Bill Frith, who when he left Coventry, Jimmy Hill took over, and he came to Southern League Club. I had Harry Ferrier, who had won the league with Portsmouth. He was there as well. And then, of course, I had the privilege of meeting and playing under Sir Alf and also my manager at Coventry. You know, was a very talented manager, good experience. Gordon Milne had a great background with Liverpool and England. So it's been a great learning curve for me to see how different managers operate. But as for goalkeeper coaches, we had nothing at Millwall. I relied on Laurie or myself the whole time I was there. Laurie was a great help. I have great admiration for him because he learnt me the trade, and it was a trade that I displaced him. He came back as a coach several years later, but I have to say, dear old Benny, he was definitely one off, and he was special for Millwall at that time. He had a difficult chairman, as we all knew. If you wanted a Volkswagen, there were two ways to get it. Play well for Millwall or go and buy it. But no, I'd say Benny Fenton, obviously, in my time at Millwall. Gordon Jago had a completely new approach. And obviously, Gordon's a clever man, and he's made a great living for himself in America. And a very nice man. Sorry when Benny passed away, but he was a character. He knew everybody. He knew from Mickey Duff. He used to live near Moro. He used to live near Terry Venables. He used to come in with training ideas. It had been taught to Terry, and we had all these different things where we were warming up. Ace, King, Queen, Jack, 10. You know, we're all different. Twist, turn, up, down, and I used to get them all mixed up. He could never remember what the actual serving names were or the exercises were, but we accepted him for what he was, and I thought he was a good manager. Gave me a chance.
So, same question to you, Horne, and then if you want to tell us your story, you've been trying to tell us, but keep going off, and then I think we're draw to a close.
Best, I think there's two managers. George Graham, he was great to be brought up with at the club, and I think George turned Mill into a football club. I've got to be honest with you. I know Kingy will disagree with me for the times he was there, but there was a period of Millwall of maybe 8 years where we was going nowhere. We was going down. We was in the bottom league. We was going out of business, and George come in and turned everything around and got the club on the footing that I feel that it's in today. I think he was the start of us getting into, leaving the club in good hands for John Docherty to take over, John Dock to take us up into the top flight, and then Bruce Rioch, Mick McCarthy, these type of managers and coming in to take the club and keep us going up and down from the first division to the championship. And hopefully one day we're going to be knocking back on the door again, even if it's just for a short while, to go back into the Premier League and terrorise all them fans in the Premier League in a nice way, might add. Make them fearful of Millwall coming into the Premier League again, which would be great for the club. But George Graham was brilliant. I've got to tell you, the way he handled the players and the way he handled the apprentices, you're not scared of him, but you respected him. When he walked past you, you made sure that you was not mucking about. You'd done your jobs properly that you had to do back in the day: clean the dressing rooms, wash the balls, get the kit ready for the pros in the morning. All that type of thing. Learn your trade, which has sadly gone out of the game now. I think that as an apprentice, that really taught you your trade, whereas now they do nothing, I don't think. Not through any fault of their own. I think it's down to that lovely health and safety element of what's coming to the game. But, I found that was a real positive thing for us to do, to clean the balls, make sure everything was put out for the pros, make sure the boots were clean. You used to get maybe 20 or 30 quid, or later in the day you might have got 50 quid if you'd done them well, which was probably, I don't know, about 3 or 4 weeks' wages in them days, as an apprentice. But, George was good. And then when John Dock come in, I think he had a fantastic squad that he was coming through the youth system, and and the players that were already there and the few that he brought in, he made us into a decent outfit. But the biggest thing I've got to say about Doc and Frank, because Frank was absolutely brilliant as well, Frank McClintock. You know, I don't know if you knew, but when they come in from Brentford, Frank McClintock was the manager and John Dock was the assistant. But when they come to Millwall, the roles reversed. John Dock was the manager and Frank McClintock was the assistant, which is quite a strange way for things to turn out. But they just treated us like men. They gave us the respect they deserved. They loved the night out. You know, we're going out, and you know they let us go out. They let us have a drink. I mean, that was the culture in them days. But it made us very close as a team. It was close knit, as Forde said, the secret seven. You know, you go out and even though you might be having a booze, you really get tight knitted with them type of, you know, with them players, and you know, you take that onto the pitch as a unit. You know, you don't want to get beat on the day, and that's how it was. I'm sure with Bryan as well as his time as playing for Millwall. That, but yeah, John Dock and Frank, John Dock and George Graham were, and the late Theo Foley, of course, Sponge Man, we used to call him back in the day, BBC, balls, bibs and cones. You know, they were the brilliant people that have been through Millwall, and I really think, in my opinion, George changed Millwall and brought it up to date, and the club's gone forward from there. We were lucky enough to get a new stadium, and you know, all this coming and taking the mantle forward, and you know, that's where the club is today. But I think that was due to George Graham coming in and changing the club. Obviously, he got into training 15 minutes late, and he said, "Go back to the Den." So I'm thinking, Doc, any chance? Like, I've got to drive all the way back to the Den, and then I've got to drive all the way home. So he said, "See you at the Den." So obviously, after training, 12:30, 1 o'clock, wherever it may be, get in the car, you smash it down the A2, get into Millwall, park in there, sit in the players' lounge, and wait for him to come back to the ground. So Doc might have turned up maybe 45 minutes later. He goes into his office, knocks on the door, "Not ready for you yet, just sit there and wait." So obviously it's now 1:45. Now, for me, you got to understand, I've got to get home. I've got to miss the traffic. 3 o'clock, knock on his door, "Not ready for you yet." 4 o'clock, "Not ready for you yet." 5 o'clock, go down the shop, get me 10 Hamlet. So obviously I go down the top, getting 10 Hamlet. "Can I go now?" 5:30, "You can go." He knew that I had to drive home. It's going to take me 2 hours to go home in the traffic. I'll get in 7:30. He just went to me, "You waste my time, I'll waste yours. See you in the morning." Simple lesson, but something that resonates with me for the rest of my time at Millwall. You know, it was just simple little lessons like that he taught. He didn't find you, he wasted your time. I wasted his. So, you know, he's quite entitled to do it. But they were little stories that Doc used to do that, you know, used to be brilliant and makes you grow up as a man and start sort of behaving yourself a little bit better, as you like, as you're coming through from a youth, you know, young pro to being in the team. So, you know, that was just a little story. There's loads more, but that was just the cleanest one I can tell, and a story that meant something to me, if you like.
Yeah, that's class.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think this has been fantastic. Definitely love to do some more of your stories, possibly going forward. I think it's been great. It's been a great insight into three of our different generations' best keepers. I mean, you know, for us, obviously Horne, and then you, Forde, and mine. You're definitely Omar's keeper. Obviously, I didn't really get to see Bryan King play. I've seen the YouTube videos and seen bits and pieces, but you are three generational top Millwall legend keepers for us, and it's an absolute pleasure to have all three of you on the show. We would like to do individual shows with you all to go in a bit more about your careers and everything else and get some of your stories. So look, all I can say is thank you very much for giving us your time tonight, and well, unless the guys have got anything else to say.
Micky, I just got one thing to say, that obviously for me to be on this show following Ray Clemence's passing away yesterday, I think we take every day and are pleased with every day and happy with every day. But for me, when I worked with George Graham, when he asked me to come in as a goalkeeper coach and work with Paul Sanson and Peter Glazier, the young goalkeeper that was there was an obvious talent, and that was Bryan Horne. And I would have loved to seen him stay at Millwall and beat my record. But the other guy, David Forde, who I'd never met until the playoffs at Wembley, and I'd seen him play, and of course I knew his name. And if anybody was going to beat my record, I'd have been pleased it was him, because he was a really, really nice chap. He was very humble when I met him for the first time. And I'm thinking now, I think he said to me when we met in the director's box, "This is the closest I'm ever going to get to your record, Kingy." And we're standing side by side. And I love that. And I love the pair of them dearly. I mean, Horne means a lot to me. And so do you, David. And as I say, if anyone was going to beat my record, mate, I'd have been honoured it would have been you.
No, thanks a million, mate. That means so much. And I remember that day, you said it was such a heartbreaking day to lose the playoffs, but to meet yourself and have that chat. And I just thought, just to stand in your presence, just your aura. And I'm really looking forward to actually reading the Lions King. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting read. And like that, every time I met you, you've been an absolute gentleman, and you're well deserved of your record. And like that, congratulations on the book, and I wish you all the best with it and all the success. And it's great that we can come on here and share these types of stories, and it's great the relationship as well I have with Horne and stuff. Anytime we've been down the den and up in the gantry watching matches, just having a bit of fun and a bit of crack and just enjoying ourselves. But it's been an amazing journey for me, and Millwall is, it's etched in my heart. It's such a memorable time, and it's going to go to the grave with me.
So that was just simply fantastic. Again, huge thank you to the three guests that we had on: David Forde, Bryan Horne and Bryan King. If you've enjoyed it, be sure to get in contact with us and leave a review. We always appreciate your feedback. And stay tuned for much more Millwall podcast related content. Thank you very much, guys. Take it easy.